I took up night cycling during lockdown. The city was quieter after dark, the air cooler, and pedaling through deserted streets gave me a sense of peace I couldn't find anywhere else. There were fewer cars, fewer people, and fewer distractions. Just me, the spinning of wheels, and the rhythmic push of my legs. It was around 11:30 p.m. on a Thursday when I first noticed the light. I had just turned off the main road and onto a side street that cut through a string of quiet residential blocks. I liked this route. It wound past a local park and some low-slung brick homes, and there were hardly any streetlights, which made my headlamp feel like a spotlight. I was about halfway through the park's perimeter when a second light appeared behind me. At first, I thought it was another cyclist. That's not uncommon. But the beam was strange. Too high for a bike, too steady for a car. I turned to glance behind me. Nothing. I slowed down, then stopped entirely, letting my breathing steady. No sound but the ticking of my chain cooling. I waited for the hum of tires on pavement, the quiet clatter of gears, something. But it was silent. And dark. I shrugged it off. Probably a reflection. A flicker from a porch light bouncing off my mirror or something. But a minute later, when I was cutting past the playground, I saw it again. This time not behind me, but to the side, a beam of pale white light sweeping across the grass like someone was slowly scanning the field. It didn't feel random. I picked up my speed. The trail curved around the park's edge and led into a tunnel beneath an overpass. I'd ridden through it hundreds of times. It was maybe 50 feet long, covered in graffiti, and always smelled faintly of mildew. As I approached, my light caught something at the far end. A figure. Lean. Tall. Motionless. They were standing dead center in the path, facing me. I didn't slow down. I aimed my beam straight at them, expecting them to move, to flinch, to gesture, to call out. Nothing. Just a still, featureless silhouette. Then they stepped sideways, vanishing into the wall of the tunnel. I skidded to a stop just before the entrance. My breath came hard. I didn't want to go in, but I couldn't go back. The idea of turning around, showing my back to whatever that was, made my skin crawl. I edged forward, slowly, barely pedaling. My headlamp swung across the walls, catching torn posters, broken beer bottles, and streaks of red paint. I told myself it was paint. I was halfway through when I heard the footsteps. Not behind me. Above me. A scuff, like a shoe dragged across rough concrete. Then another. I looked up. The ceiling was low, no more than 10 feet, but nothing should have been up there. Then, directly above me, I heard it, a scraping sound, then a metallic clang, like something dropping into the shadows. My heart kicked into overdrive. I bolted forward, the tunnel's exit suddenly feeling miles away. As I shot out the other side, I dared to glance back. No one. Nothing. But for the rest of the ride home, I had the sickening sense that someone was matching my cadence perfectly. Not behind me. Not beside me. But above. I didn't ride again for a week. Every time I thought about the tunnel, my chest tightened. I told myself it was a trick of light and nerves. Urban paranoia. The kind of fear that feeds on itself. But then I started hearing the sound again, not while cycling, but at home. A faint, rhythmic ticking. Not a clock. Not anything mechanical. It came from the ceiling. From inside the ceiling. At first, I thought it was an animal. Maybe raccoons or birds trapped between floors. But the pattern was too consistent. Tap. Tap. Pause. Tap tap. Like footsteps trying to stay quiet. Or match mine. I stopped sleeping in my bedroom. Moved to the living room sofa. Tried to drown the sound with podcasts and ambient rain. But it was always there. And worse, it was starting to follow me. On the 5th night, I was walking home from the 24-hour corner store. About a block from my apartment, I passed beneath a street lamp and heard it again, the scraping sound. Above me. I looked up and saw a power line swaying, gently, in dead wind. I checked every rooftop around me. Nothing. But when I got to my front door, I found something stuck between the frame and the knob. A spoke. From a bicycle wheel. Bent and blackened, but unmistakably a spoke. I didn't touch it. I backed away, heart pounding, and walked 3 blocks to my friend Alex's place. Crashed on their couch without explaining why. The next morning, I returned with Alex. The spoke was gone. The door looked untouched. My head spun with the kind of doubt that makes you afraid to speak. Had I hallucinated it? Could stress do that? I decided to confront it. That night, I forced myself to ride again. I followed the exact same route, through the residential streets, past the park, toward the tunnel. The wind was still. The city asleep. I could feel my breath in my ears, shallow and fast. The tunnel entrance loomed ahead. This time, I stopped 50 feet out. I pulled my phone from my pocket and hit record, aiming the camera straight ahead as I slowly approached. Every part of me was screaming to turn around. I entered. The light from my headlamp fluttered as I passed beneath the first arch. I kept the phone steady, voice low. I'm recording this. Thursday night. 11:48 p.m. tunnel under Huron Street. Then I heard it. Not above. In front. A low mechanical whirring. I squinted. Something was moving on the far wall. A bicycle wheel. Spinning in place. Mounted to nothing. Just hovering, turning slowly, its spoke tips glinting in my light. I stopped pedaling. The wheel stopped spinning. Then, from the far end of the tunnel, came the sound of a chain slipping. A rusty, irregular grind. And the shape appeared again. Tall. Lean. No light source. No face. Just the suggestion of something watching. I lifted the phone to capture it, and the screen turned to static. Not just static. Something else layered beneath it. A looping video of a ceiling. My ceiling. Shot from directly above my bed. I dropped the phone. It clattered across the concrete, screen cracked, video still playing. I didn't grab it. I turned and sprinted with my bike out of that tunnel and didn't stop until I reached the highway. I haven't ridden at night since. And I haven't slept in a bed either. Because the next morning, when I returned for my phone, it was gone. But a new spoke had been left in its place. Still warm. I got into night cycling because I hated the gym. There was something about fluorescent lights and sweaty machines that made my skin crawl. I preferred the hum of tires on asphalt, the cool air on my face, and the privacy of darkness. I usually stuck to the path along the canal, well lit enough, but still quiet. I knew it well. Or at least I thought I did. Until I took the detour. It was early September, maybe 9:45 p.m., and I was about 5 miles out when I spotted the construction signs. The canal path was closed ahead. No way through. I swore under my breath and veered off the paved trail onto a gravel road I'd never noticed before. It was narrower, tree-lined, with no lights. Just my headlamp cutting a narrow path through the dark. I told myself it'd loop back. It had to. I rode for maybe 5 minutes, then 10. No turns. No forks. Just gravel, trees, and an unsettling quiet. Even the insects had gone still. Then the chain snapped. 1 second I was gliding, the next my pedals locked, jolting me forward. I stumbled off, nearly tipping. My light flickered, then stabilized. I bent down to check the damage. The chain hadn't snapped exactly. It had come undone. The links had fallen slack, like something had unthreaded them all at once. I stood up slowly. Something was wrong. The gravel path was gone. Not just changed, gone. I was now standing on hard-packed dirt. The trees were closer together. And the air smelled different, older. Like wet wood and copper. I turned in a full circle, heart pounding. The path behind me, where I had just come from, was now a wall of black trees. I took out my phone. No signal. Of course. I tried to laugh, tried to tell myself I was just disoriented. Maybe I missed a turn. Maybe I'd gotten spun around. Maybe. The noise cut through me like a blade. A sharp metallic click. Then another. The sound of a chain being threaded through gears. But not mine. I turned my light toward the trees. Nothing. Then, just at the edge of the beam, a glimpse of motion. A figure. Low to the ground. Crawling. Fast. It ducked behind a tree before I could make out more than its shape. Long limbs, hunched posture, something glinting at the joints. I backed away slowly. Click. The sound again. This time behind me. I spun. Another figure. Standing this time. Closer. They weren't human. Not exactly. I only saw it for a moment, enough to know I didn't want to see it again. Its arms were made of interlocked metal, like welded together bicycle chains. Its face, or where the face should have been, was a cluster of circular spokes. Like bike wheels twisted together into something that watched. I ran. I left my bike. I didn't care. I crashed through the trees, branches whipping my face, feet slipping in the dark. Behind me, the noise grew. Dozens of chain sounds. Click. Whir. Rattle. Click, 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 click. I tripped, fell hard, tasted dirt, scrambled up again. My lungs burned. Then light. Real light. I burst from the trees onto pavement. A cul-de-sac. Dim street lights. A white van parked crooked at the curb. I turned to look behind me. The trees were still. Silent. But I could still hear the clicking. Faint. Metallic. Ticking closer. I didn't go back from my bike. I walked the whole way home, 2.5 miles, soaked in sweat and blood from where the branches had carved my skin. The clicking sound eventually faded behind me. But it never left my ears. When I got back to my apartment, I locked the door, turned every light on, and sat in the shower until the water ran cold. I couldn't explain what I saw. I couldn't even describe it properly. But I couldn't unsee it either. That night, I slept on the floor of my bathroom with the exhaust fan humming. I needed white noise. Anything but silence. Because in the silence, I could hear the chains. 3 days passed. Then 5. Nothing happened. I even convinced myself it had been a panic attack. A hallucination, brought on by dehydration or some undiagnosed anxiety. But then, on the 6th day, something changed. I came home from work to find a small cardboard box on my doorstep. No address. No return label. Just my name, written in black Sharpie. I took it inside, set it on the kitchen counter, and stared at it for a while. I told myself not to open it. I told myself it could be anything. But of course I did. Inside was a bike chain. It looked like mine, same length, same oil pattern, but the metal links were twisted. Bent at sharp angles, as if someone had forced them into a different shape. The chain was arranged into a crude outline of a human hand. I dropped it and backed away. Then I noticed the second thing. A strip of paper, folded tightly and jammed in the bottom of the box. I unfolded it. It was a printed map. My neighborhood. Only one thing had been marked, a red X over the cul-de-sac where I'd escaped. Scrawled in the bottom right corner, in the same Sharpie, was a single word. Return. I didn't. Of course I didn't. I threw the box away, blocked every window, and started researching what the hell I had seen. There was nothing specific, just the usual slurry of creepypasta and urban legends. But one thread stood out. A Reddit post from 5 years ago. The title read, "Anyone ever been chased by a man made of bike parts?" It sounded stupid. I almost ignored it. But when I clicked, I saw a photo. A grainy, poorly lit snapshot of a wooded trail. Barely visible at the edge of the frame was something hunched, with metallic limbs. The poster never responded to comments. Their account had been deleted. But the photo burned itself into my mind. That night, I heard the noise again. Faint. From outside my window. I live on the 2nd floor. I killed all the lights, crawled to the blinds, and peeked out. Something was hanging from the tree outside my building. Not a person, not even an animal. It was a mass of bicycle chains, wrapped and suspended like meat. In the moonlight it twitched. Not from wind. From tension. From weight shifting. I didn't sleep. The next morning, it was gone. No trace left behind. But I knew what it meant. It was waiting for me. Still ticking. Still moving. And every night, I hear the chain again. Fainter now, but steady. Like it's matching my breath. Waiting for me to ride again. I never used to be superstitious about roads. I'm a delivery cyclist, part-time, and I've spent countless hours cutting through city streets, dodging cars, blowing lights when it's late enough. I've seen fights, crashes, even a guy running down the middle of traffic wearing nothing but headphones. Nothing got under my skin. Except for the shoulder lane on Dresden Avenue. It's just a regular stretch of road, maybe 3 blocks long, but something about it always felt wrong. Every cyclist I know avoids it after dark, even though it's the most direct way downtown. There's no sign, no warning, just a weird kind of hush that settles in as soon as you roll onto it. Like the whole street is holding its breath. I ignored all that. I was behind on orders one night, around 10:15 p.m., and the app pinged me to pick up a double from a Thai place near Dresden. The tip was huge. I didn't even think twice. I cut across the usual path, then hit Dresden at a sharp angle. My tires wobbled as I crossed the boundary, like the pavement dipped in some invisible way. I looked around. No cars. No pedestrians. Not even light coming from the windows of the townhouses lining the block. It was as if the whole street had been swallowed. Still, I pedaled forward. About halfway down, my rear wheel started feeling strange, like it was dragging. I stopped and checked for a flat, but everything looked fine. I pressed down, spun it, even lifted the frame to test. Smooth. I got back on. 5 feet later, the resistance came again. Like something was pulling me backward, gently, insistently. I looked over my shoulder. Empty. The street behind me was bathed in the dull glow of a single flickering lamp. No cars. No people. No movement. I pushed harder, confused and annoyed. Then, the whisper. At first, I thought it was the wind. But the night was dead still. The whisper came again. Right behind me. It wasn't words exactly, more like breath through clenched teeth. Sharp and low. I turned my head so fast I nearly tipped. Nothing. I didn't stop to think. I stood on my pedals and gunned it. I passed the second block, heart in my throat, wheels wobbling harder now like I was riding over gravel, except the road was smooth. Then came the sound I'll never forget. A second set of wheels. Behind me. Perfectly matching mine. No motor. No gear shifts. Just the rhythmic thrum of tires pressing pavement. I didn't dare look back. My focus narrowed to the glow of the next intersection, the end of Dresden. I could see lights spilling in from the cross street. A car waiting at the red. Safety. 10 feet away. 5. And then the voice. Right next to my ear. Don't look. It wasn't a whisper this time. It was familiar. My voice. But I hadn't spoken. I broke into the light. The car honked. The driver shouted something, but I didn't stop. I kept going, all the way to the restaurant. Parked the bike. Hands shaking. Before I could go inside, I checked my rear wheel one last time. The spokes were bent. Not from impact. From pressure. Like someone had been holding on. I didn't sleep that night. I kept hearing that voice, my own voice, repeating those 2 words, don't look. Over and over again in my head, warped like a tape being chewed up by an old VCR. I told myself it was exhaustion. A trick of adrenaline. But then I saw the camera footage. My bike has a small rear cam I use to document close calls. It saved me from more than one insurance scam. The footage auto-uploads to a drive. I hadn't even thought about it until I was brushing my teeth the next morning. I sat on the floor and pulled up the feed on my phone, fast-forwarding to the moment I turned onto Dresden. For the first block, it was normal. Just a streetlight blinking in the distance. But at the halfway point, right when I started to feel the drag, something appeared. At first it looked like a shadow, a blur at the very edge of the frame. But as I moved faster, it stayed locked in the same position, 10 feet behind, slightly to the left. I paused, zoomed in. My breath caught. It was a person. No bike. No skates. No movement of legs. Just gliding. Their arms were stiff at their sides, head low, as if watching the back of my neck. I scrolled forward. The figure stayed there for the next 30 seconds, neither gaining nor falling back. Just locked in place like some glitch. Then came the voice. Even in the video, I could hear it. "Don't look." My voice. Clear. Precise. But the timestamp didn't match up with any part where I was speaking. There was no video artifact, no mouth movement, no source. Just the words. And then, something else. A single frame, not a second, not even half, where the figure behind me opened. That's the only way I can describe it. One moment it was whole, the next it was separating. Like its body split along an invisible seam. Long slits down the chest, revealing something underneath, rows of blinking, wet eyes. Then the frame skipped. The next second, I burst into the light. I shut the video off. Deleted the whole thing from the drive. That night I took a different route. Avoided Dresden entirely. But the streets weren't the same. I kept catching glimpses of movement in the windows of parked cars. Shadows in alleyways that didn't shift right. The lights flickered even on streets I knew by heart. 2 nights later, my apartment buzzer rang. No one was scheduled. I checked the intercom screen. Blank. Not black. Just blank. A muted gray-white static. Then the audio crackled. 3 knocks. Then a breath. Then again. "Don't look." I ripped the wires out of the wall. Now it's been 3 weeks. I haven't ridden since. I barely sleep. I wake up every night at 3:42 a.m., heart racing, convinced someone's standing at the edge of my bed. But every time I turn the light on, I'm alone. Except for the marks. A grease smear on my floorboards. A perfect U-shape. Tire tread. And last night, when I went to the kitchen, I found my bike. Inside. I didn't bring it in. I hadn't touched it in weeks. It was propped against the wall, mud-caked and dripping. And on the seat, coiled neatly like a belt, was a black bike chain. Still warm. Still ticking. My therapist told me to pick up a hobby after the accident. Not just for the physical recovery, she said, but for the mental one. Something rhythmic. Something that made me feel in control again. Cycling seemed harmless. I bought a used road bike from a guy on Craigslist. Nothing fancy. Just a basic frame, a decent chain, and brakes that didn't squeal. He threw in a helmet and a headlamp, told me to take it easy for the first few rides. It was late October. The streets were cold and mostly empty after 9 p.m. That suited me fine. Less traffic, fewer distractions. Less chance of hearing a horn and flinching so hard I'd fall sideways into traffic. I started small. Around the block. Then the neighborhood. After a week, I was cruising 10 miles a night. That's when I found the hill. It wasn't on any of my normal routes. I stumbled on it by accident while coasting through the edge of an industrial zone. No street signs, no overhead lights. Just a long, smooth incline that sloped down between 2 warehouses. The first time I saw it, I stopped at the top. It was steep. Too steep. But the pavement looked new. No cracks. No gravel. And the night was clear. I eased forward. The descent started gentle. I shifted gears, letting the wind rush past me, the tires whispering over the asphalt. But halfway down, something felt off. The road didn't flatten, it kept going. Longer than it should have. I pedaled once, lightly, just to feel resistance. There wasn't any. The hill steepened. I squeezed the brakes. Nothing. They clicked but didn't bite. I looked down. The cables were intact. Everything was in place. But I was speeding up. Fast. I pulled harder. Still nothing. The wind screamed now. I stood on the pedals, trying to shift my weight back, anything to slow down. The street ahead stretched into pitch black. No signs, no cross streets, just pure downward slope. I swore and threw the bike sideways, slamming us both into the wall of a loading dock. Pain shot through my ribs. My shoulder cracked. But I stopped. Everything went quiet. I lay there for a few seconds, panting, staring at the sky. Then I heard the clicking. A soft, mechanical downshift. Not mine. Someone else's. I sat up fast. The hill above me was empty. But I could hear the sound. Gear teeth locking into place. Click. Whir. Click. Growing louder. Someone was descending. But I couldn't see them. I stumbled to my feet, dragging the bike upright. The front wheel was bent, useless. My legs shook. I turned and limped away from the hill, through the alley between the warehouses. I didn't look back. But the clicking followed. Not loud. But steady. I reached the main road, flagged down a passing car, and begged for a ride home. The driver didn't ask questions. Maybe she saw something in my face. Maybe she heard it too. I tried to forget the hill. I threw the bike away. But every night since, when I lie in bed, I hear that same sound, faint and precise. Click. 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 Like someone's still riding. Still coming. And never shifting into stop. 3 days after dumping the bike, it reappeared on my porch. Same frame, same bent front wheel, same dent where I'd slammed it into concrete. But the chain was missing. In its place, a strip of black cloth threaded through the sprockets, tied in a perfect bow. I didn't move. Just stood there, heart kicking hard against my ribs. It wasn't just that the bike was back. It was dry. I'd tossed it into a waterlogged dumpster behind a closed gas station miles away. It had rained that night. Poured. Yet here it stood, clean, unscathed, and bone-dry. Like it had never left. I dragged it into the yard and smashed it with a sledgehammer. Bent the frame in half. Cracked the forks. Tore the handlebars off and crushed the spokes flat. I didn't stop until it looked like a heap of scrap. Then I locked every door and spent the night on the couch, knife under the pillow. In the morning, I opened the door and dropped the coffee mug I was holding. It was back. No damage. Chain still gone. Black ribbon fluttering in the breeze. That night I didn't sleep. Not because I was afraid of dreaming. I didn't get that luxury anymore. It was the sound. It started around midnight. Faint at first. A soft clicking. Like a gear shifting slowly. From inside the walls. At first, I thought it was the pipes. But then the rhythm grew precise. A clean 1-2 cadence. Then a pause. Then again. Click click. Click click. Pedal cadence. I stood in the hallway, frozen, as the sound moved overhead. Floorboards creaked. Something was riding above me. I don't have an upstairs. When I turned on the bathroom light, the mirror was fogged over, though no one had used the shower. In the center of the glass, wiped clear with a fingertip, was a symbol. A small oval with 2 spokes drawn through it. A wheel. I left that night. Took only what I could carry. Rented a room at a motel off the interstate and turned my phone off. I didn't tell anyone where I went. I didn't sleep. The room was quiet at first. Sterile. Comforting. Until 3:17 a.m. Click click. Right outside the door. I sat up, heart beating so hard it felt like it might crack my ribs. Shadows moved beneath the doorframe. A slow pass. Tires whispering over carpet. Then a pause. Then my own voice muffled through the wood. You left me on the hill. Silence. I stayed in that room for 2 more days. Then I left the city. Quit my job. Changed my number. Moved into a 3rd floor walk-up in a different state. I haven't ridden since. But some nights, always just before dawn, I hear it. Not in my building. Not in the street. But in my chest. Click click. Click click. Like something mechanical has embedded itself in me. Like every heartbeat is pushing gears forward. I think it's riding me now. And one night soon, I won't stop at the bottom of the hill. The last night I rode was supposed to be routine. 15 miles. Same circuit as always. A figure-8 loop through the neighborhood, then out along the old train path, then back home before midnight. I'd done it 100 times. I didn't notice the missing reflector until the halfway point. It was one of those cheap red discs clipped to the back of my seat post. Always slightly loose, always rattling. That night, it was gone. I stopped under a floodlight, checked the frame. Nothing. Just the small notch where the clip had snapped. It wasn't important. But something about its absence sat wrong with me. Like an itch I couldn't reach. I kept riding. The train path was darker than usual. I flicked my headlamp up to max, scanning ahead. On either side of the trail, weeds grew high, too high for mid-November. It hadn't rained in weeks. Still, the air smelled wet. I remember shifting gears, hands slick with sweat, when I saw it. A red glint in the distance. Sitting dead center on the path. I coasted closer. It was my reflector. Somehow standing upright. Balanced perfectly on its narrow edge, as if placed there deliberately. I got off the bike and approached slowly, heart thudding. When I reached down to pick it up, I noticed something carved into the dirt. A shallow groove, etched in a tight circle around the reflector, like a wheel had spun in place. Over and over. Then I saw the tracks. Not tire tracks. Footprints. Dozens of them. Bare feet. All facing inward. As if a crowd had gathered around that one tiny red disc. I snatched it up and backed away. That's when the light shifted. It wasn't my lamp. It was behind me. I turned fast, beam swinging wide, and saw another reflector. 50 feet away. Then another. Just beyond it. Then more. A whole trail of them, blinking faint red in the dark like eyes reflecting light. I didn't put them there. I knew that with a deep, bodily certainty, the kind of knowledge that feels older than logic. I got back on my bike and rode. Fast. The trail didn't curve the way it used to. The trees pressed in tighter. The air felt thick, like riding underwater. My tires made no sound. My own breath felt wrong in my ears, sharp and tinny, like it wasn't mine. Then I saw movement. In the beam's edge. Something tall. Not running. Not even walking. Just following. Floating just above the ground. Its body didn't cast a shadow, but the reflectors did. Dozens of them, all around me now, their red glint pulsing with each pump of my legs. I pedaled harder. No matter how fast I went, the road stretched longer. Like time was stretching too. I passed a sign I didn't recognize. White metal, no text. Just an outline. A crude shape. A bicycle. Split down the middle. I didn't stop. Not even when I passed my own backpack lying on the trail, the one I'd left at home. Not even when I heard my voice, from somewhere in the dark. Don't leave it behind this time. I made it home. Or I think I did. The house was there. The door unlocked. My reflection in the window looked right, almost. But when I went to put my bike away, there was already one hanging in the garage. Same frame. Same mud on the tires. Same missing reflector. I stared at the bike already hanging in my garage. It was identical. Same frame. Same worn pedals. Same bar tape fraying at the edges. But more than that, it was mine. Every scratch, every dent. And the reflector, still gone. The one I'd picked up from the trail was in my pocket. Cold. Wet. I should have run. I didn't. I reached out, hesitated, then touched the handlebar. It was warm. Not like something left in the sun. Like skin. Like breath. I backed away. Went inside. Locked every door. Every window. I didn't sleep. When the sun came up, I checked the garage again. The bike was gone. So was the one I rode in on. And the reflector was no longer in my pocket. But I didn't dream it. I couldn't have. Because there were marks in the concrete. Tiny circles, like someone had spun a wheel in place. Not once. Dozens of times. The rubber had melted slightly, like friction had turned it hot. I started walking everywhere. No more rides. No more trails. But it didn't help. 2 nights later, I woke up to a sharp red glow at my bedroom window. I sat up slowly. A reflector. Propped neatly on the sill. Facing inward. I opened the curtains. No one there. But the garage light was on. It flickered twice, then went dark. I crept down the stairs, phone in hand, light shaking. When I opened the door to the garage, it was empty. No bikes. But in the center of the floor was a single item. A cracked helmet. Mine. Except, I hadn't worn one that night. It was the old one. The one from before the accident. The one they cut off me in the ER. It still had the blood. I didn't touch it. I left it there. That night, I dreamed of the trail. But it was different now. The reflectors weren't scattered. They were watching. Lined up in perfect rows, each mounted to a shape I couldn't fully see. Tall silhouettes that didn't move but somehow grew closer. Their red glints pulsed in time with something. Not my heartbeat. Not my breath. My pedal rhythm. Even in the dream, I was riding. Trapped on the same stretch of trail, over and over. The air getting thicker, the turns tighter, my legs weaker. But I couldn't stop. And ahead of me, always just out of reach, was a flickering figure. Riding without a chain. Gliding uphill without slowing. Every time I closed the distance, it vanished behind a curve, and I heard it say, my voice again. Finish the loop. I woke up gasping, legs cramped like I'd actually ridden all night. The next morning, I went out to check the garage. It was empty. But the driveway was wet. Small, narrow tire marks. A loop. And in the center, perfectly balanced on edge, was the reflector. It wasn't mine. It was cracked down the middle, the way the sign had shown. But inside the crack, embedded in the plastic, was something worse. An eye. Not a painted one. A real one. Glossy. Brown. Still wet. Looking at me. I've left it untouched. It hasn't blinked. But sometimes, when I pass it in the dark, I hear the faint whisper of wheels turning, spokes catching, cadence building. And I understand now what finish the loop means. It's not a route. It's a return. To the exact moment where the ride should have ended. And if I ever get back on a bike again, it won't be me pedaling.